like a Hellcat.
Hello and welcome back to the channel where once again it's time for a Saturn review, and of course I had to do it at some point or another. I had to cover the most popular game worldwide on the Saturn, Virtua Fighter 2. I don't really think there's much else that anybody can say about this game. Everybody knows it stood the test of time really well. It was one of the Saturn's most loved games. I think that's fair to say. I don't think you could find many people who would say anything bad about Virtua Fighter 2. So let's just sit back, relax and enjoy my review for Virtua Fighter 2. So straight away you get a cool intro, and I really love the intro. I love the intro music. I love the way it shows the characters, how they progressed from the Virtua Fighter graphics to the higher quality of Virtua Fighter 2 graphics, and I really do think this sets you up to know that this game has progressed so much further from Virtua Fighter. I think if you checked out my review of that, I don't think my review of Virtua Fighter is that positive in today's light, but hopefully my review for Virtua Fighter 2 should be a little bit more positive. And once you hit that main menu, you'll see you've got arcade mode, VS mode, expert mode, ranking mode, team battle mode, watch mode, and options. There's far more to this game than the original Virtua Fighter. Options pretty standard: life gauge, match point, time limit, continue, enemy difficulty, button assignment, pretty much standard stuff in the options. But the great thing about Virtua Fighter 2 is that it has had so much more added to it over the original Fighter. Obviously arcade mode is the place to be, and you've got a couple more characters I do believe over the original Virtua Fighter. Akira, Pi, Lau, Wolf, Jeffrey, Cage, Sarah, Jackie, Shun, and Leon make up the roster for Virtua Fighter 2.
Fight! 1. Ready! Go!
So once you've loaded up and you start your fights, you will instantly realize that the character models look worlds apart, quite literally, from the original Virtua Fighter. People have said it before that you could be mistaken for thinking this was on a completely different console, because the character models on this game look absolutely incredible compared to the original Virtua Fighter. Now, the game runs in the Saturn's high resolution mode, and there really wasn't enough games that utilised that, I didn't feel, on the Saturn. As you can see, the character models just literally blow just about everything else away in terms of 3D character models on the system. I don't think there's any other 3D fighting games on the system that have got characters that look as smooth, as detailed as the ones on Virtua Fighter 2. Not even Athlete Kings probably, and that's a great looking game as well, but the character models on Virtua Fighter 2, I can't fault them for saying this game came out in 1995 worldwide for the Saturn, apart from here in the UK, of course. In the PAL regions it came out just after it in January, but for that time there was no other fighting game that had graphics that compared to Virtua Fighter 2. Now the backdrops on the game, they are flat two-dimensional, but they still actually look relatively good. They blend in. I don't really think you notice it too much, in all fairness, and I can't really fault those as well. Obviously later games would have 3D environments, but Virtua Fighter 2s for the time, they look fantastic, and actually they still hold up pretty well today. I can't really fault anything at all about the way that Virtua Fighter 2 looks. It runs obviously really well, 60 frames a second. It looks fantastic. It's really smooth. It's the smoothest and most responsive, I think, 3D fighting game on the Saturn, and that's one of the reasons why I still genuinely think it's a fantastic looking game to this day. You probably won't be very surprised when I tell you that this game plays absolutely brilliantly as well. I don't think I can fault the way it plays. It is without a doubt so responsive, so crisp. It's brilliant, even with just a 3-button layout of block, punch and kick. It doesn't matter. It's got such massive depth with the moves and the way the characters are controlled. I just can't fault the way it plays. It's a fantastic playing game. It's responsive, it's crisp, and that is exactly what I want from a fighting game. Some of the other 3D fighters on the system, I just don't feel they're quite as quick and quite as just that responsive. I've used the word, but it's true. This game is so responsive. If you compare it to Shinden, even Last Bronx and Fighters Mega Mix, they're not quite as quick as this game, and I think that I just think it makes Virtua Fighter 2 what it is, and that is probably, in my opinion, the best playing 3D fighting game on the system.
KO.
So when we're talking about the sounds and the sound effects, the musics, I'll start with the sound effects actually, because there's a little downer here. The voice sampling quality isn't the best. It's still got that slightly muffled sound to it. It's not amazing. It's nothing major in the game. It doesn't break the game or anything. That's probably just the only downside I can probably think of, if I'm perfectly honest. But talking about the music, well, I don't know what else I can say about this, because the soundtrack for Virtua Fighter 2 is one of the very best soundtracks to any fighting game ever made. Just so many of the tunes stick in your head and you can listen to them. One thing I used to do is when I used to take a bath, I used to put the Virtua Fighter 2 CD, the disc, in my CD player and actually just listen to it, because you can do that, listen to the soundtrack for it if you just put it in your CD player. And I just listened to it whilst I had a bath, and that's something that probably sounds a bit weird, but it's such good music. And the best thing I can do is just play for you a few of my favourite tracks from this game. So talking about the different modes, you've got the standard arcade mode, which is exactly like the arcade. You go through, beat all the challenges, and will face Dural. At the end, pretty self-explanatory. Versus mode, obviously, you can fight against a friend in a two-player battle. Expert mode is a bit tougher, where your opponents can kind of like learn and counter patterns if you keep on using the same moves over and over again. It's harder, you have to do 2 rounds per battle on that one. Ranking mode, similar to that. It's kind of like arcade mode, but you have to have 2 rounds on this as well. But at the end of your fights, you're given a performance based on a different categories to say how good you are in each thing, which is pretty cool actually, if I'm honest. Team battle mode, pretty straightforward there. You know, you can pick up to, I think it's 5 characters and just battle off against a computer or a friend in team battle. Team battle modes are always quite good for multiplayer as well. Watch mode is pretty much that, where two opponents fight and you can just literally watch them. So there's definitely a lot more to it than Virtua Fighter, and the reason it's got more longevity as well than... I spoke about Last Bronx having multiple modes, but I thought they were quite similar. Just the gameplay being so rewarding and just the fluidity of it makes it more appealing to come back and play it. You might only play it for 10-15 minutes at a time, but it's got that appeal to come back to it, and having the different modes kind of just helps that even more, if I'm perfectly honest. All of that really ties into the game's longevity. It hasn't really got anything unlockable. Yes, you can play as Dural, you can also play as a gold Dural. Each character's got some different costumes that you can just access by pressing up and A when you select them, but it doesn't have anything unlockable in the sense of like extra characters really, or extra modes of play, anything like that. It's pretty much all there to start with. The longevity comes in the fact that the game plays so well, and it's still so good to play this today. My youngest daughter will actually play this game. She's only 8 years old, but it's so good. You can pick up and play it as a youngster, and as an older player you can learn and become really good at the game, and that's the longevity for the game, the way it plays. The fact it still holds up in the looks department, especially on a CRT TV, I still think it looks really good. So it's still worth playing, and I'll still pick it up and play it nowadays, and obviously it's like over 20 years since I first played it, but it still feels just as playable now, and that's where the longevity is. So in terms of do I recommend Virtua Fighter 2? I'm pretty sure you can guess the answer to that. Of course, it's probably, like I said, in my opinion, the best 3D fighting game on the system. And when people talk about what the best genre of game is for the Saturn, fighting games comes out on top. Usually 2D fighters, because there's, I think off the top of my head, there's probably only 10 3D fighters in the PAL region, possibly. There might be more, But when I was thinking about it earlier on, I could only think of 10. So there's not actually that many, and Virtua Fighter 2, in my opinion, is the best of the best in that regard. So that is it for this week, Virtua Fighter 2. What are your thoughts on this game? I'm assuming most people have got pretty positive thoughts about Virtua Fighter 2, if I'm pretty honest. That is it for today. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to continue watching me collect my entire PAL game collection for the Saturn. I think I'm up to 76 titles at the moment, so I'm about 1/3 of the way through. Obviously, it's going to get a whole lot more difficult now. Thanks for watching, and I shall see you again very soon.